All right, now we turn to reaction from Capitol Hill. We welcome in Missouri Senator Eric Schmitt, a key member of the Senate Armed Services Committee. It is also good to have you, sir. I'm particularly interested in what Congress can do about our immigration policies to help President Trump. He's doing everything that he can. But it was Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent who suggested moving to cut off some illegal migrants from tax benefits, from cross-border money transfers, saying that there is no place for them in our financial system. This is part of the incentives that were offered to them to come into this country, part of the reason that it makes it so easy for them to stay here. Is this a good idea?
I do. I think we need to take away every incentive possible that made this wide open border that the Biden administration constructed. That's what they did. And whether it's a remittance tax, whether it's making sure that illegal immigrants aren't getting taxpayer benefits, we approach some of that on the One Big Beautiful Bill. But I think what you see here, Jackie, is all this mass migration needs to be met with mass deportations. So we have plenty of laws that are now being enforced by this administration to get people who shouldn't be here to go back to where they came from. We have to have the resolve as a country to go do that, because what the left wants to do, they want to, create controversy, create chaos, make it look like the ICE agents are the bad guys in all this. They're picking up bad folks and sending them back where they belong, not in the United States of America. So we have immigration laws that need to be enforced. I would point out, though, that it's not just an illegal immigration problem. We have real abuses with our legal immigration system that should be addressed. Take the H-1B program, for example. You have white-collar jobs now that the Americans have the humiliation of training their foreign replacements in order to receive their severance pay. They don't have any additional skills. They're just being paid less. The OPT program, which has become a visa mill by universities because they get paid full freight, that's taking away American jobs too, where you have some of the highest unemployment rates for engineers and physics majors who we have plenty of in this country, but they're being squeezed out through some of these programs. So there's a lot to do on this front. But the good news is we have a president that wants to enforce the laws, and that is not what we saw last administration when 20 million people came here in 4 years illegally.
Yeah. President Trump is doing what he can, and I understand that it's difficult in an environment where Democrats oppose many of these policies and make comprehensive immigration reform difficult for Congress. But can we expect more? Can we expect a timeline where Americans will know that a system is being put into place? Our borders are secure, so that was certainly step one. I see what the president is trying to do with some of these pauses in the aftermath of this shooting. But certainly, as you mentioned, more needs to be done. And the Democrats always say, well, we want comprehensive reform. I mean, they wanted open borders. They want to see numbers far greater than what we could possibly process in this country come into this country. But what can we do to fix a broken system?
Well, I think when you hear comprehensive immigration reform, it's usually code word for mass amnesty. That's what they're talking about. And we're not interested in that. What we need to do right now is enforce the laws of the United States. And here's the thing. There's nothing particularly new about deportations. Bill Clinton deported 11 million people. The difference now is the Democrats have been radicalized. The people who wrote white papers 20 years ago are key members of their party. And when you even hear Democrats condemn violence against ICE agents, what they never say, Jackie, what they never ever say is let them do their jobs. Get out of the way and let them do their jobs, because this is a coordinated attempt to thwart immigration enforcement in this country. The American people have had enough of it. It's one of the big reasons they sent President Trump back to the Oval Office. He campaigned on this. So this mass migration we've seen needs to be met with mass deportations. 20 million people came here illegally. There's flaws in our legal immigration system. I think this is a real kind of civilizational issue for us here in the West. They're dealing with it in Europe. It's had tragic consequences there, and I think if we get ahead of this in this country, we'll be okay. But the left is hell-bent, I think, on this open borders policy. And then if you come here illegally, you're never ever supposed to leave. It's ridiculous.
Right. I want to switch to some other news of the morning. Let's talk about Venezuela for a moment. President Trump wanting to stop the drug trafficking that is coming from that country. He has tried to do this through seaborne action. He says that we're going to start to enforce it on land as well. He wants the airspace over Venezuela to be stopped so that he can help control the trafficking in this coming into this country. Your thoughts on this situation? Tom Homan mentioned we have a massive drug problem. That's part of this overall picture that we're dealing with.
I'm just so glad we have a president that's focused on the homeland and our hemisphere. I think for decades there have been too many of the Washington elite and permanent Washington that have been focused on fighting wars for other countries and far off places as opposed to taking care of business here at home. So whether it was discussion about Greenland, whether it was the Panama Canal, or now this cartel activity you see where the boats are being blown out of the water, this is a real focus on what's close to home for us and making sure that we take care of. I mean, as Tom Homan just said, we've effectively closed the border. So they've gone onto the high seas. And these narco-terrorists don't have the right to poison 100,000 Americans every year. So I think it's a two-part strategy. One is to get rid of the precursors that are coming from China and then take out the cartels that are distributing this and bringing it to the United States of America. President Trump is well within his Article 2 powers, and the Democrats are playing a very dangerous game here by encouraging service members to disobey orders, to break the chain of command. All they have left, Jackie, is they can't believe that he won. They can't believe he got his cabinet in. They can't believe he's delivering on his promises, so they want to sow chaos now. And I think we just have to stand up and say, that's nonsense. President Trump has the ability to do it, and he should do it.
I think you're right. Let's move on to Ukraine and Russia. It seems like Vladimir Putin might be showing a little willingness to have more conversations to a substantive deal. But what that deal would look like, of course, is the question. There are meetings going on this morning with Secretary of State Marco Rubio, Steve Witkoff, Jared Kushner as well. Where do you think that we could get a delegation from Ukraine is coming to be part of these conversations? But concessions will need to be made because what Putin's peace deal looks like is very different than what everybody else's looks like.
Right, and that's the nature of diplomacy. And I think, again, some of the folks who've been so wrong about so many foreign policy questions over the last 30 years have all kinds of advice here, but are really trying to undermine President Trump, the peace president's efforts to bring about a peace deal here. Hundreds of thousands of people have died. Thousands more die every week. What he's trying to do is bring the parties together. It's part of this Trump doctrine, which is understand what our core national interests are, pursue peace, pursue diplomacy, and have overwhelming force. But really, Europe has to step up in a much more meaningful way. This is a war between Ukraine and Russia. The United States of America, because of President Trump's leadership, is the only country and the only president, the only person who can bring these parties together. So they're making progress. I know there's still some sensitive issues that remain, but I would hope that everybody would be rooting for this. But you see so many people that are rooting against this, and they have no plan, Jackie. They have no other plan except for this meat grinder continue so they can thump their chest and act like the tough guy. But the truth is, President Trump's doing the hard work of diplomacy, which is what we need right now.
Well, we so appreciate your time this morning. Thank you so much for laying all of this out for us, Senator Eric Schmitt.
Anytime. Take care.
Hey, it's Will Cain. Click here to subscribe to the Fox News channel on YouTube. It's the best way to get our latest interviews and highlights. And click to subscribe to the Will Cain podcast for full episodes right now.